We're live now. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to this meeting of the Swansea Bay Joint Committee. We'll take apologies for absence first, please.
Yes, Chair. Apologies this morning from Wendy Walters, Professor Paul Boyle, Professor Elwyn Evans, Jan Williams, and Deb Smith, Monitoring Officer, who's just had to leave the meeting. If you want to explain, Chair.
Yeah, thank you. Unfortunately, Deborah Smith has been called away due to a family emergency, and we are still okay to proceed with the meeting despite the monitoring officer not being able to be with us. But obviously, we hope everything's okay for Deborah and her family. So we'll proceed on that basis. Are there any other apologies for absence that we need to note for this morning? If not, we'll move then to declarations of interest. Are there any declarations, members? Meeting? No, I don't see any hands. So we'll move then to the minute meeting from 2025. I don't have any requests for any amendments, but we'll take them if there are any. If not, I'm happy to move them as a true record. Could I ask for a seconder, please? Thank you, John. All in favour? Okay, thank you. Those are agreed. I have no announcements this morning for this meeting, so we'll move to public questions. Are there any public questions submitted for today?
No questions submitted today, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Then to the first item, which is the audit of accounts for the Swansea Bay City region, and I'll go to Jason Blewett, who will take us through the report. Jason, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. So, yeah, this is the usual report we provide following completion of the audit of the City deal accounts. I won't go through detail something just for your attention. You'll see that the report is a really positive report with very few findings. The main finding is we're looking to provide an unqualified audit opinion, which is essentially a clean audit opinion. There's no uncorrected misstatements to report to you, and you'll see from the report that there was only a few errors that we identified from the audit altogether, which was just a few minor typos or disclosure. So thanks to Chris and Stephen for the help that was given during the audit. I'll pause there and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Jason, for that. Chris, I'll come to you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I should just acknowledge, I know Jason has just mentioned, it's a pretty good audit report, clean audit report, and certainly I'd like to thank the staff for the work that they've done, but also thank Jason and the audit team for the way that they've conducted the audit and the way that the team and Jason's team work together in a collaborative manner to get this over the line. So positive outcome, which I'm just pleased of, because it is a complicated area of accounting on the City deal area. Diolch.
Yeah, thank you, Chris, and thank you, Jason. Absolutely, Chris, concur with all of your comments, and thanks from all of us again for the work that's been undertaken. And really pleased to see the positive audit coming out at the end of it. So thank you for that. I'm happy to move this report on Jason's behalf. Could I ask for a seconder, please? Thank you, Darren. And are there any questions or comments to Jason on the report? If there aren't, then this one is for approval. Can I ask colleagues to show if they're in approval of the report, please? Thank you very much. That is approved. So thank you for that. We'll move then to the statement of accounts next. And Chris, I'll come back to you for this one.
Thank you, Chair. This is a natural follow-on from Jason's audit report. It presents the overview of the financial affairs for last year in respect of the Swansea Bay City deal. It gives a pretty good comprehensive summary of the overall position, and it's effectively now been audited. You did receive a copy of the original one in July, which was pre-audit, and this is the final one. Chair, you will be asked to sign the statement within the accounts afterwards. It also includes the annual governance statement at the end of the document. This will be presented now to the Auditor General for signature next week. What I was going to do is just ask now Stephen just to talk you through one of the two of the main financial statements within that, just as a reminder on the areas in terms of the financial position. But it is sensibly the same as the one in July. Thanks. Steve, can you just go through the main points?
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Chair. So for context, Carmarthenshire County Council is the accountable body for the financial stewardship of the city deal, and it's a 5th year the Joint Committee has had to compile a statement of accounts. As Chris said, I'm not going to run through the entire report because it's essentially the same as what you've seen previously. But so on page 7 of the statement, we can see the overall estimated investment position of 1.374 billion over the lifetime of the portfolio. So this is presenting a positive overinvestment of 98 million compared to the original investment target. And on page 14 of the statement, we can see the outturn of the Joint Committee. So this was a deficit position of 439,000. However, this is mainly due to the timing issues of the top slice being generated from the distribution of the grant. So during the year, the City Deal received 34 million of its grant award from the UK and Welsh Government, and this included a front loading of 10.9 million from the UK Government. We distributed 22.3 million to the partners within the year. So this left our reserves slightly high at year end to about 65.6 million, up from around 54 in the previous year. However, as you're probably aware, most capital programs don't follow a straight line, so it's quite acceptable to have some level of reserves, and much of these reserves have been profiled to be utilised in years 9 to 11, that's years 26 to 29 of the portfolio anyway. So the main financial statements start on page 30 of the statement, and it starts with the comprehensive income and expenditure. This is on page 31. So this shows all the income and expenditure received and incurred by the Joint Committee for the year. The statement presents the accounting cost of service and shows we had a surplus in year of 11.2 million. So that's essentially the difference between the grant we received, 34 million, and then what we paid out, plus the running cost of the POMO. We have balance sheet on page 33. In there, we've got some short-term creditors, but that relates to the top slice of some outstanding Q4 claims we received after year end. And again, in here we have some short-term creditors of 3.9 million. Again, they are the Q4 claims we received after year end. I won't touch upon all of them because quite a few. We've got a cash flow statement on page 34, and that shows how cash and cash equivalents are generated and applied by the Joint Committee. But for more context, the notes start on page 35. So this provides further information and it allows comparison to the previous financial year. So I won't touch upon many of these. I'll probably do one or two. So note 1 shows the employee costs of the Portfolio Management Office. You can see last year, 24-25, was lower than the previous year. That's because we've got 2 vacancies within the team. That's the PMO manager and the project development manager. Note 4, supplies and services. There's a line in here, sorry, called projects and activities. In here, we use this to categorize or code the interest earned on the cash balances within City Deal. So 24-25, this was 2.55 million compared to the previous year's 2.77 million. It's a bit lower because the base interest rates have come down within the year. And finally, there's the annual governance statement, which Chris mentioned earlier. That starts on page 44 of the statement. So, as you know, the Joint Committee is responsible for ensuring that its business is conducted in accordance with the law and proper standards. It must also ensure that public money is safeguarded and properly accounted for. So this annual governance statement details how this is achieved and responsibilities of the key roles within it. So, as Chris mentioned, this will need to be signed off prior to the sign-off by the Auditor General for Wales. The other one then probably is the on page 58 of the statement is the scope and results of the internal audit that was conducted earlier in the year. The audit concluded with an assurance rating of substantial. So they were the main points I wanted to highlight today, Chair. I'm open for any questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Steve. And just to confirm, Chair, my team will be in contact with your office afterwards to get your signature on the document, because your signature is required on page 18 after this committee.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you, Stephen, for the run through there. Very, very helpful. And thanks all for the work on this. We've had a comprehensive run through of that statement of accounts. Are there any questions or comments for Stephen or Chris? If not, I'm happy to move. Could I ask for a seconder, please? Thank you, Darren. Could you all show if you're in favour, please? Thank you very much. That is approved. So then, Chris, come back to you, because that letter we talked about in terms of the representation to Audit Wales. So, Chris, come back to you on this one.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The letter is just to for us to write formally to the Auditor General Wales to confirm that actually we have given access to all relevant documents and given access to all staff that are necessary, and we have declared all fraud or potential fraud that there may be there. It's a standard letter that just confirms our representation and is jointly represented by yourself and myself signing it. So it clearly indicates that actually we've been totally open and provided them with all the information that they need to make an assessment on the accounts. So that'll just be signed afterwards, subject to approval. Diolch.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Again, happy to move this one. Could I ask for a seconder, please? Thank you, John. All in favour, please, if you could show. Thank you very much. That is agreed. So we'll move then to item 9, which is the financial monitoring for Q1 2025. And again, I'll come back to Stephen on this one, please.
Sorry, just grab my other notes up. Bear with me, sorry. So, so this is on page 133 of the report pack and details of provisional Q1 financial monitoring for the current financial year. So the report is split into several sections. So I'll just draw attention to the Appendix A on page 139. So the Joint Committee and the accountable body is showing expenditure, so it's provisionally estimated 1.725 million for the year, and we're expecting interest accrued City's cash balances to be around 1.605 million. So for the portfolio management office itself, we're projecting the expenditure to be 538,000. The POMO staffing cost of this is 422,000, and that includes the accepted pay award for this year. So this is a slight underspend of 11 for all grade, the whole post at the top of the grade, and the pay award was slightly less than what we originally projected. So income is set out at the in the funding contributions towards the bottom of the appendix, and for the total income for the year, we're projecting to be 2.202 million. So this consists of a drawdown of the top slice of 597,000, and he said million, and estimated interest derived from the cash balances, as I said, of 1.605 million. So the top slice is currently projected to be 225,000 less than what we budgeted for when we set the interim budget earlier in the year, because at that point in time we were forecasting higher in-year City Deal grant expenditure. So towards the bottom of the appendix, we can see the statement of balances and we can see the reserve position. So from 24-25, we had a deficit balance in reserve of just under 255,000. And this year we are projecting a further deficit of 179,000, leaving our reserves to be about 434,000 in deficit. So a lot of this is a deficit. This is primarily down to a timing issue of the top slices being generated, and this will be offset in future years of the City Deal as we pay out more of the City Deal grant income to the partners. So Moving on to the portfolio investment fund in the body of the report, I think it's on page 135. And we can now see that the overall portfolio investment position is 1.39 billion. So this is up from the 1.374 billion of the revised portfolio budget. There's a few variances which made up that difference of about 16 million. I'll just go through a few of these. So digital infrastructure, they've got an additional 1.1 million due to the private sector investment being leveraged by the project. Pembroke Dock Marine have an additional 1.3 million additional private sector investment due to the Meta and MEIS projects. Supporting innovation, low carbon growth has an additional, I think, 10.2 million, mainly due down to the Welsh Government's Tata Transition Fund. And finally, Swansea's Waterfront Digital Village is showing an additional 3.5 million due to commitment being omitted from the previous return. So if we then look at the annual investment for the year, so Q1, we're showing a projection of 171 million a year, and this is an underinvestment of 67.3 million. There's variances across the entire portfolio, but is mostly due to the HAPS project. There's got a variance of 56.6 million. So there was a decision made by the HAPS project to reimburse the registered social landlords on completion of the schemes. This has resulted in a city deal grant of underspend in year of 6.3 million and private sector of 50.3 million. However, this funding has been allocated to future years, to be released in future years, sorry. The PDM project with Pembrokeshire, so the project is showing an in-year underspend of 3.5 million in relation to the PDI grant element. However, this is not true underspend, as this grant has already been used in the previous financial year, but it wasn't included on the Q4 budget investment forecast, which we set the budget on. And then finally, Pentre Owl, is so the Zone 1 fit-out costs of £3 million are now likely to be incurred in the first quarter of 26-27 rather than 25-26. And SILIG, so the Sport and Innovation Low Carbon Growth, has a variance of 7.1 million. And I have to point out there's an error in the report, the H2 stimulus project. So the report states that there was a reduction in the project total for the H2 stimulus project of 0.7 million. So this is not correct. There was an error in the spreadsheet I issued to the partners. So there's no reduction to this project. And then, as I mentioned previously, the Swansea Waterfront Digital Village, or the Kingsway scheme, is showing an overspend of 3.5 million. And this is due to commitments omitted from the previous return. So to conclude, although we do have a negative 67 million variance in the year, this variance is profiled to be used in years 9 to 11 with no reported output effect on total outputs, investment or benefits of the portfolio. So thank you very much, Chair. I'm quite happy for any questions.
Yeah, again, thank you for that comprehensive run through, Stephen. And again, the clarity there around the correction, which is again noted, and of course the point that this is largely a timing issue in terms of some of those triggers. So again, they correct themselves in due course. So that is useful to understand. Are there any questions or comments for Stephen on the update? No, if not, then thank you, Stephen. I'll move this report on your behalf. Could I ask again for a seconder, please? Thank you both. And then we'll move to the vote. If you can show if you're in favour of the report, please. Thank you very much. Thank you. Again, that is carried. We'll move now to item 10, which is the appointment of the new senior responsible owner for the City deal. And in Debbie Smith's absence, I'll go to John Burns. So, John.
Thanks, Chair. So what board members have in front of them is an approval for the appointment of a new senior responsible owner, the SRO for the Swansea City deal. The SRO, just to reiterate, is accountable to the Joint Committee, ensuring that the City deal programme has appropriate governance arrangements in place. So the first appointment was made in June 2020, In Appendix 1, members have the roles and responsibilities if you'd like to have a look at that section. But it's worth noting as well that since, or just over 5 years ago, Wendy Walters undertook the role of SRO and chaired the Swansea City Deal Programme Board, in addition to her chief exec role with Carmarthenshire County Council. So timing is of the essence. So now that all projects and programmes are approved for the business cases, and we're in the thick of the delivery stages of every project across the whole portfolio, it's proposed that Wendy Walters steps down as the SRO role, and this is now undertaken by other officers going forward. So the programme is in conjunction with what other considerations Joint Committee approved in principle on the 10th of July, and that is looking at the alignment between the Swansea City Deal and the South West Wales Corporate Joint Committee and the governance arrangements for both regional settings. So what's proposed is the SRO is undertaken by a director responsible for economic development for each of the 4 local authorities, operating on a rotational basis, with each director assuming the role for a 12-month period, and then that will then transfer to another one of the directors after that period has ended. So it's proposed that the director with responsibility for the economic development for Pembrokeshire County Council, so that's Richard Brown, the Assistant Chief Exec, will be the first appointment, which will be effective immediately, subject to the Joint Committee's discussion and decision today. So the appointment of the directors in rotation will ensure greater alignment of the work of the City Deal and the work undertaken for the Corporate Joint Committee. It's also noted in the report, Chair, that the commitment has been given by Welsh and UK Government in terms of support for this proposal. What they have asked for is to be involved in future discussions around governance and the required level of assurance for the City Deal portfolio going forward. So, Chair, subject to discussions and approval, hopefully we can get that underway after the committee meeting.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan. That's really clear and straightforward. Again, note the points from UK and Welsh Government on this one, and again, grateful for Richard for stepping forward to take on this role subject to our agreement today. So again, I'm happy to move this one on Jonathan's behalf. Again, look for a seconder, please. Thank you, Darren. Any questions or comments to Jonathan on this item? If not, are we all happy to agree? Thank you very much. That is carried. Thank you for that, and congratulations, Richard. Forward to working with you on this one. And we'll move then to item 11, which is the Portfolio Gateway Review Report and Action Plan. John, come back to you for this.
Thanks, Chair. Again, this is for approval. So this is to inform you of the outcome of the Portfolio Gateway Review and to agree the action plan in response to the recommendations, which I'll cover. So the Portfolio Gateway Review took place between the 17th and 19th of July. Many of the members of this committee were part of that review. The primary purpose is to review the outcomes and objectives for the portfolio and how they fit together, because that's one of the most important things, and confirm that they make necessary contributions to the overall strategy. And the strategy can involve ministers, government departments, our region, etc. So the outcome of it is a delivery confidence assessment rating. We had an amber green rating. That is the best we can have at a portfolio level at this point of delivery. So that's great news to have that confirmation. As part of the process, Chair, we had 16 stakeholders who were part of the review, and they can be found in Annex B if you want to have a look at those. But the 2 recommendations the review team provided to the portfolio SRO, Wendy Walters, particularly around the position in effective management and delivery going forward. The first one being development of a benefits management strategy and plan, incorporating private sector leverage to shape and focus the portfolio looking forward. And the second one is around profiling the skills and staffing requirements, particularly around the portfolio management office, but also within the teams across the different projects and programs to ensure that we continue alignment with business case intent. So those are the 2 recommendations. We have an action plan now produced, which is with yourselves, and that is putting those 2 recommendations with key actions that we're already working on. So we're looking for approval for that action plan as well. But the next review in the document, it says the next review should take place between 12 and 18 months' time, potentially around October 2026. So in months to come, we will have to determine the need for an assurance review and an appropriate time for that, noting that last year we did skip a year because of how well we were positioned as a portfolio. We will, in a few months' time, review that situation and see whether we need one in 2026. So, Chair, we're looking for approval for the review report and the associated action plan in Appendix B.
Thank you, John. Again, very clear. Are there any, and again, thanks for the work done on this one and in responding to the recommendations. So could I, I'm happy to move the report. Could I ask for a seconder, please? Thank you, John. Are there any questions or comments to John on the report and the action plan? If not, again, could I ask colleagues to show if they're in favour, please? Thank you very much. That is agreed. We'll move then to our final item for today, colleagues. It's the project closure report. John, I'll come back to you again.
Thanks, Chair. It's the hat trick of agenda items. So this is testament to where we are as a portfolio. We are looking towards closure. There are 39 elements of project elements across the portfolio, some of which have already closed, but the benefits that they produce will still be realised up to 2033. So what we're looking for today is an approval from Joint Committee on the template that we provided all projects and programmes. It was actually requested by our project management teams. It was developed in consultation with them to make sure that it suited their needs. It's shaped through best practice, so portfolio programme project management, utilising other project closure reports. We've had lots of them in the past. The needs of the city deal and feedback from the project managers as well. So it is a formal city deal document signifying the official end or closure of a project component. So all of the 39 components will receive one of these. It summarises project elements for particularly on performance, evaluates outcomes and documents lessons learned, which again are really useful for our current portfolio and for future projects in the region. So there are 14 sections in the report. I'm not going to read out each section, but you probably expect things like objectives and deliverables, performance-related considerations, financial investment summaries, risks, issues, and then just making sure that we have all the right sign-offs, particularly around the project programme SROs, around the PMO and with Joint Committee as well. So all of that's contained within the template. We also have provided every project and programme guidance document to support the template, and we will provide ongoing support to complete each project closure as and when it happens. And it's probably worth noting that because we have a few elements which are completed, we will retrospectively complete those and go through that process. And Chair, that's the summary for project closure.
Thank you, John. And again, very straightforward. Are there any questions or comments for John on this one? If not, again, I'm happy to move the report. Could I ask colleagues to show to second, please, a colleague, if one could? Thank you, John. And again, if you could show if you're in favour of the report, please. Thank you very much. That is carried. And that brings us to the end of the agenda for today. So can I thank you all again for your attendance? And I can declare the meeting closed. Thank you all, colleagues. See you all soon. Take care now.
Thank you all.